What up, though? What up, though? 7 days, we back again for another episode of Diamond Effect. I'm March Bishop. We got Mike Ball, Aaron Olinger. What's up, everybody? Glad you was able to.
Oh, you went mute. I don't know how. Maybe disconnect on the microphone. Damn. There we go.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. I didn't hit no buttons, but anyway, I don't know. But like I said, thank you all for coming out. Like always, we got another interesting stories that we're going to bring up today. So we're not going to just talk about one. We're going to focus on several different things that have went on throughout the week because there's been so much going on that just talking about one particular thing is not it's not enough. So we're going to have to. So we're going to dive into a couple things. So like I said, tonight we're going to do something called going around the world in 60 minutes. Okay. Now, a few of these things is like number one, the president of the United States threatened Oman, one of America's own longtime security partners, over control and access over the Strait of Hormuz. Japan is dealing with enormous stress in the bond market, and the yen remains under pressure. And Japan, the largest foreign owner of U.S. Treasuries, just reduced its Treasury holdings once again. So we're going to dig into that. Then we have Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Pakistan signed a mutual defense agreement that sounds remarkably similar to NATO's Article 5. Then we're going to jump over into the crisis over in Puerto Rico. And everybody knows Puerto Rico is rationing water. Lake Mead and Lake Powell has fallen to historic lows here. And one of the largest hydroelectric facilities is approaching the level where it can no longer generate electricity. And what can actually happen if that dam happens to shut down for that. And while all of this is happening, farmers are dealing with drought, heat, expensive fuel, and lack of fertilizer. And the USDA has dramatically lowered production estimates from several major American crops. That's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to that. Because when you connect energy, water, food, military alliances, and government debt, you begin to see something much larger taking shape here. So, Mike, I'm going to let you go first. I know you had a couple of things that you wanted to say first before we jump into each one of these topics. I'll let you go first.
Yeah, that works out great. All right. So tonight we're traveling around the world in 60 minutes, but what we're really examining is pressure, military pressure, economic pressure, pressure on our water, food supply, and ultimately the American family. These stories may appear unrelated. The Strait of Hormuz is thousands of miles from Japan's bond market. Lake Mead is nowhere near Puerto Rico. A defense pact signed in Mecca may seem disconnected from the prices of groceries in Alabama. But this is the diamond effect. One disturbance strikes another, and consequences that begin overseas eventually reach our gas pumps, electricity bills, grocery store, and mortgage payments. Start with the Strait of Hormuz. Before the war, roughly 1/5 of the world's oil and liquefied natural gas moved through that narrow passage, which we've discussed ever since this whole war started. Today, Iran says the strait remains closed. President Trump says it's open, and the shipping data places the truth somewhere in between. Ships are moving under heavy protection, but traffic remains far below normal. Now, Oman, which shares the strait with Iran, has traditionally served as a diplomatic bridge, is negotiating a proposed transit route right now. President Trump has now warned Oman not to interfere with American efforts to reopen the waterway. That shows how high the stakes have become. This is no longer simply a military contest. It is a struggle over the flow of global energy and the economic leverage that comes with it. Now let's look at Japan. Japan remains the largest foreign holder in U.S. Treasury securities, but its holdings it's recently declined as its own bond yields approach levels not seen in decades. Japan is confronting inflation, a weakening currency, enormous public debt, and growing pressure within its own financial system. That does not mean Japan is suddenly dumping America, quote unquote, and it does not mean the dollar is collapsing. But if Japanese investors increasingly keep their money at home, demand for American debt could weaken. That can contribute to higher treasury yields, which influence mortgage rates, auto loans, business financing, and government's own borrowing costs. A bond market problem in Tokyo can eventually become a household budget problem in Alabama, for instance. Then we return to the Middle East. Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Pakistan have signed a mutual defense agreement declaring that an attack against one will be treated as an attack against all three. These countries have not suddenly become enemies of the United States, but they are preparing for a world in which they may not be able to depend exclusively on Washington. Saudi Arabia brings money and energy. Turkey possesses NATO's second largest military, and Pakistan is the nuclear armed state. The agreement's exact military obligations remain unclear, and it may never operate like NATO, but the message is unmistakable. American partners are hedging their bets and building a security structure capable of acting more independently. Meanwhile, another pressure is building closer at home. Puerto Rico is facing drought, agricultural water rationing, declining reservoirs, and forecast favoring continued heat and below normal rainfall. In the American West, Lake Mead has reached historically low levels, while Lake Powell remains dangerously depleted. Federal officials have warned that sufficiently low water can threaten hydropower generation at Glen Canyon Dam. These reservoirs support cities, farms, tribal communities, electrical generation, and millions of Americans. When the water falls, governments must decide who receives less. I mean, that just logically makes sense. Farmers may plant fewer acres. Hydropower can decline. Electricity can become more expensive. And that brings us to now food. USDA is not predicting a nationwide crop failure. Production forecasts for some major crops remain strong. But beneath those national totals, nearly half of the lower 48 was experiencing drought in early August, with conditions worsening across several important agricultural regions. America may produce enough food overall, while individual farmers, ranchers, and communities suffer serious losses. Combined drought with higher fuel prices, fertilizer costs, and transportation disruptions, and the cost of moving food from yield to your kitchen can still rise. So is the world right now entering a new crisis? Maybe not one sudden dramatic collapse. What we may be witnessing is several critical systems coming under pressure at the same time. War constricts energy supplies. Energy costs feed inflation. Bond markets demand higher returns. Higher rates squeeze families. Drought restricts water. Water shortages threaten electricity and agriculture, and nations form new alliances as they prepare for what comes next. Now, this is the diamond effect. Tonight, we're not going to sell you panic. We're not claiming the dollar will collapse tomorrow. America is running out of food, or every new alliance represents the end of American power. But we will not ignore the warning signs simply because the full consequences have not arrived yet. War, water, money, food. 4 subjects, but connected with one story. And over the next 60 minutes, obviously, we're going to follow that story wherever the evidence leads. And you're muted, AB.
I don't know why it keeps doing that.
Okay.
Okay, so you basically just did the show. So okay, but yeah, so we're gonna jump into the first one though. And the first one is dealing with Oman, and it's a lot more serious than it may sound at first, because you have President Trump that again threatened military action against Oman, saying that the United States would bomb the country if Oman gets in the way of Washington's efforts concerning Iran and the Strait of Hormuz. The dispute centers on negotiations between Oman and Iran concerning the negotiations and possible management of the strait, which we've been talking about, several times throughout these different shows. And that's extraordinary because Oman's um, isn't really considered an American adversary. It's quite the opposite, really, because the U.S. and Oman have long-standing defense relationships. And in 2019, an agreement expanding U.S. military access in Oman and a lot of their Oman facilities, including their ports. Now, this was just back in 2019. So um, Oman has actually played another important role in that area because it was basically like a mediator, so to speak. Because when Washington and Tehran don't speak to each other directly, Oman has frequently jumped in, carrying messages back and forth, doing these host negotiations, so to speak. So threatening Oman kind of causes a lot of serious problems. The first one is diplomatic, because if Oman decides Washington can no longer be trusted as a partner, then the United States loses one of the few governments in that region that's capable of communicating with both Washington and Tehran. The second problem is military access. The third is reaction to the other Gulf state countries, because these countries are already asking whether they can rely upon the U.S. security umbrella. And a lot of these threats against Oman kind of conclude that they may need to do some kind of additional security or make some kind of other arrangements in the near future, which we're going to talk about that here in a few minutes, dealing with Saudi Arabia. But the biggest imminent danger is Hormuz itself. So you have Iran on one side, you have Oman on the other. And before this conflict started, you had approximately 21.6 million barrels per day of crude oil and petroleum that passed through the strait. Now, during the second quarter of 26, that collapsed down to 4.9 million barrels per day because of the conflict and shipping restrictions. And the EIA currently expects several constraints to continue through August, but there really isn't a a guarantee that that's going to happen. Um, so as we talked about before, 1/5 of global petroleum consumption comes from this area, along with LNG, natural gas. You got helium, you got fertilizer, you got a lot of stuff that comes from this area, and that means that that little stretch of water in the strait between Iran and Oman, that can affect your gasoline, your diesel prices, your jet fuel, plane tickets, um, your natural gas, your fertilizer, your shipping costs, food production, manufacturing, inflation. We can keep going on and on here because you know that there's just with oil by itself, you have over 6,000 household products that use this oil in order to make these products. Not to mention, you have that 3-2-1 ratio where you got 3 parts goes to gas, 2 parts diesel, 1 part jet fuel. So you have that thing going on, you know what I mean? And now I think last check, oil is over $100 a barrel, which we have talked before about the whole uh, the Brent price versus the refinery price, and you not wanting those two prices to meet. You can see it at the gas pump now. Gas is over $4 a gallon. Diesel is, high fives, almost six, um, and it's closing in. Grocery store prices going up. Everything is going up, and a lot of this stuff is dealing with this. So, with this particular situation, just dealing with Oman, itself, um, you really don't want two enemies there. You know what I mean? Because if you got Iran on one side, you got Oman on the other, and you got enemies off of both of them, you're not even getting in. They're not even gonna let you in. You know what I mean? So you gonna have this situation that we got now. We're going from being open all the time to now being mandated. You're gonna end up charging fees and tolls or whatever the what they call it, environmental cost or whatever they want to word it. It's a toll. A toll is a toll, no matter what you sell.
Real quick on that. I have the updated numbers right now on how many ships moved through the strait in the last, within the 4 day. Saturday, August 15th was 3. Sunday, August 16th, 2. Monday, August 17th, 6. And Tuesday, August 7th or 18th, which is yesterday, which was 6. So for a 4 day total of 17.
17 ships in 4 days.
Now the thing is, you got to remember on a daily, people go, well, how much was the daily? Well, it was anywhere from 180 to like 250 in that kind of range per day before the war. And we were kind of averaging there for the last couple of weeks for about actually 20 ships going in and out per day. But now we saw it go down last Thursday down to 7 ships. And when that happened, I'm like, oh shit, here we go. And basically every single one of those ships that are going in and out are being escorted by our warships and our military. So what they're doing is essentially Operation Freedom, where they go in through the strait onto the IRGC's side and where their blockade is supposed to be. But since we have we own the air, they can't get the Mosquito fleet to enforce that blockade. So our warships are going in, and that's what Operation Freedom originally was, where we would come in to their side, escort the ship successfully back out. So, but that didn't end up happening for a while, Operation Freedom. But then we started seeing this out of nowhere about a week and a half ago, and it was like, oh shit, no mainstream media is talking about how we're essentially doing what Operation Freedom proposed to do. So, anyways,
So what you think about this, Aaron? You've been quiet up here.
Well, I agree with what you're saying. I did see what Trump said, that if Oman jumps sides, that he's going to bomb the hell out of them. But we've kind of failed in our mission in that region as far as protecting the GCC countries, the 6 countries. Oman is right across from Iran. They've been attacked. They've had some of their oil refineries and stuff hit. They need the money. Oil is their commerce. And they realize that if we're the police force in the area, sooner or later we're going to leave, and they're stuck with Iran. I mean, the GCC let us put military bases in all their countries to surround Iran and Iraq to protect them from them. And we dismantled Iraq. It's split up between 3 terrorist groups that are all a part of Iran's proxies. Hezbollah, PMJ, and Islamic Jihad. And so that's a failed nation. So Oman is looking down the road at what happens to us when the United States leaves. And we have lost the trust of Oman. We have lost the trust of the Saudis, UAE, different ones no longer trust and believe that we can save them. And right now, this week, Iran has taken an aggressive offensive posture. They've gone from defense to offense. They warned that the cyber attacks are going to become more severe over here, even though our government still won't admit that it's Iran that's attacking us. Iran this week also put a $30,000 bounty on the kill or capture of any male American soldier. They also put a $60,000 bounty on the kill or capture of any female American soldier. So that's going to bring the technicals and anybody that think they got a cause out the network, because they looking to get paid some money. And you'll get a large mercenary force that'll pop up wanting to collect in on some of that money. Iran hit 3 more ships this week in the last 72 hours. They also launched an attack against UAE. and the UAE in response suspended all money transactions with Iran. So that's done. Then the Houthis attacked the Saudis and attacked Aramco, which is Saudi's main largest oil facility. They hit it with missiles and drones. Right now, from what I'm studying with this new offensive strategy, and I'm going to explain it, and if I don't explain it right, you guys ask me some questions. The Iranians right now are trying to keep the worldwide demand of oil at its current levels. Right now, there's no nation that is rationing gas. Australia's rationing diesel, and diesel is $5 a gallon here in the United States, which is going to make goods higher because trains and semis run off of diesel. But no nation right now is rationing gas. So what Iran is counting on is they're counting on the demand to stay where it's at so that your oil reserves start to deplete. I mean, just last week, ours went down 5 million barrels. And so has China's. Well, China's wasn't exactly 5 million, but you get the meaning of what I'm trying to say. Everybody's reserves depleted. So if nobody's smart enough to start rationing, that's going to give, and they deplete their reserves even more and more. The closer they get to the bottom line of running out, the more leverage it's going to give Iran. So Iran can play a long game here. They can even stay in this war until Trump goes out of office, and they have talked about that. So they're looking to give themselves maximum leverage by waiting on the nations to almost run out. And then the economic damage that will be done to these nations is going to give them the maximum leverage. Okay, we'll let oil start to flow again from both our nation and the other nations, and we might even jack up the price. And if you want it, this is what you're going to have to pay to get it, or you're going to have to pay us off and repair all of our damages if you want oil to flow again. But they're playing the long game here, and they're depleting everybody's oil reserves. And I don't think the majority of people even see what's going on. But they're prepared to stay in this well up to 2030 from what I'm seeing. So their whole attitude has gone from defense to offense at this time. But I'll stop there for right now.
You know what? I think that, well, number one, you're absolutely right, Aaron, about what you're saying. I think that this is going to come to a head real soon.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that because you got a lot of back and forth going on. Okay. Now, don't get me wrong. Iran feels that they won this.
Mm-hmm.
So now they're being boastful. You know what I mean? We're going to do this. We're going to do this. You know, and that's fine. You know what I mean? People go and they jaw jack all the time about what they're going to do. But what you're going to do and what you actually do is two different things. Now, what you're doing, though, is that you kind of stretching it a little bit. And what I mean by that is, with this stuff that's going on, the U.S. is only going to deal with this so far. Now, right now, they've been just going through, you know what I mean, knocking out stuff here and there, not knocking out weapon systems, you know, different stuff throughout. Okay. And it's kind of been like this tit for tat thing. You know, we shoot something, they send some drones, and we're going back and forth. But pretty soon, you're going to get to the point that this is going on as far as it's going to go, and you're going to have to do something, because if you don't, you're going to sink. That's when this turns from us just shooting just regular stuff here and there to us upgrading this, going tactical, because they're going to feel that that's the only option that's left. Because what you don't want to do, you can't turn tail and run now. You can't. Because if you do, then you're going to lose accreditation across the world.
Mm-hmm.
And you let Iran shoot up to the top of the food chain. So you're going to have to do something. You know what I mean? And it has to be large scale. It's not going to be, okay, we just going to put boots on the ground. No, you're not. Now you may put them on the ground after the fact, but you're not going to do it before. You know what I mean? Now, like I said, that's going to be hurtful, because if they did run tactical, that puts a lot more people in jeopardy, not just Iran, but the surrounding countries as well. Puts them in jeopardy as well. So that's it's kind of like a damn if you do, damn if you don't situation, because something's gonna have to give eventually. They're not gonna keep sitting here going back and forth. You know what I mean? You got the thing last week where they was talking about the USS Abraham Lincoln that's been out there for well over 260 some days. You know what I mean? They have food shortages, bathrooms aren't working. You know what I mean? They mold growing up like it's. I mean, you got people threatening to jump off the ship. You got. I mean, like it's a bunch of stuff going on right now, because that ship's not being replenished as it should. But one of the places that actually does the replenishment for those ships that was out there got hit. So that's the reason why that ship wasn't replenished, as long with a couple other ships that was out there. So it's not just that was the one that was there the longest, but that's not the only ship that's out there going through these issues.
Not.
You know what I mean? So so it's a lot of stuff that's actually going on. You know what I mean? And it's going to come to a point that this holding pattern that you're doing, you're going to have to do something, because you're not going to be able to afford to keep holding. You're going to have to do something.
Right.
And then the question at that point is, what are you willing to do? You know what I mean? And based on the stuff that we've seen and that we've heard so far, and with the people that we know that's in these positions, do you think that they would do that? Absolutely. If they felt that they didn't have a choice. I mean, so that's one of the things that we're going to have to look at. Now, on the other side, you have Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Pakistan that signed this Mecca Joint Defense Alliance agreement. And while that's significant, it's because you're dealing with two nuclear powers, which is Turkey and Pakistan, that Saudi Arabia now they done got into this to where, okay, if you attack us, then you basically attacking Turkey and Pakistan. You know what I mean? Which is something that we have been talking about Turkey there for a while anyway. Because Turkey possesses one of the region's largest militaries, and they have drone and defense manufacturing industries. And like I said, it's also a NATO member, but it's been one of those members that's been kind of going both ways. You really don't know where, right? You really don't know where they're going. Pakistan, it possesses a large military, and it possesses nuclear weapons. But there's no confirmed evidence that Pakistan has extended a nuclear umbrella to Saudi Arabia, and Turkey hasn't acknowledged that either. But you figure that that's probably the reason why they're trying to get into that. You know what I mean? So why would I get into a agreement with two nuclear powers and not have it? You know what I mean? So you know that that's some talk in there to try to make that happen.
Mm-hmm.
Now all three of these governments still continue to maintain significant relationships with Washington. Turkey still remains in NATO, and they describe this as this defensive agreement, and the negotiations have reportedly been underway for like almost 3 years, meaning that it wasn't just invented just last week, because this isn't just this one little thing that popped up. They've been working on this. So that's another thing that could actually come in and change the dynamic of that region, especially if there's some way along the lines Saudi Arabia ends up with nuclear weapons. Now, I do remember back, what was it, maybe back about a month or two, um, that Trump was actually talking about making a deal with Saudi Arabia for
Yep.
them to
Yep.
um,
Mhm.
be able to have nuclear over there. Because remember, we were talking about why would they do that, being the fact that they were the ones that screwed us out this petro deal. So why would we turn around and let that happen? And why would you let them have it? You don't want Iran to have it, but you're gonna let them have it. You know what I mean? It's not gonna work. You know what I mean? It's not gonna work. Everything is gonna start in the Middle East. This this huge war that we've been hearing about for years and years and years. It starts in the Middle East.
Yep.
I mean, and you looking at it firsthand come together.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Now, whether you believe in that or not, that's on you. But it's a whole lot of things that's being strikingly resembling stuff that we've read in the past. You know what I mean? So this isn't necessarily something that we can like kind of turn a blind eye to because you know there's reasons why these countries never had nuclear in the first place. There's reasons for that. You know what I mean? And we need to keep it that way. So Aaron, you was talking about earlier. You was talking about Japan because they took another hit. Now we talked about
Yeah.
them a couple weeks ago, but they just took another big hit. So you want to jump on that and tell everybody exactly what happened
Yeah.
again?
Japan is having a bond and currency problem. And again, they're going to have to pick which one they're going to save. Either they save their money or they save their bond market. And this could trigger a global crisis. I mean, on Tuesday, August 18th, there was a crash in Japan. $120 billion was wiped out from the Japanese stocks in a single day. And that's almost catastrophic because the currency and bond markets are collapsing. Japan now has an inflation problem, and that's interesting because for the last 30 something, I think it's 35 or 38 years, Japan has not experienced increasing prices. They haven't experienced inflation. This inflation is a alien concept to them. And now they've got an inflation problem because of the bond market and currency is collapsing. Um, the US 401ks managers, the big fund managers, they all, and the stock markets, they are all heavily built upon the foundation of borrowed Japanese money. And I'm gonna give you an example of how they did it. With Japan lending money, at first they was lending it at 0% interest. Then later they went to 1% interest. So a fund manager could go over there and say borrow $100 million and then put it over here in the United States and say like a fixed income account that would be similar to like a fixed savings account that would pay 3.75% or even 4%. And then greed would set in on you in a matter of time because you'll be like, well, the more money I borrow, the more money I can make for this fund and things that I'm managing. So that's what caused all this influx of money coming into our stock market and caused the influx of money that went into the retirement portfolios of some of these different companies. And then our government was borrowing money as well. And now Japan is in trouble. And on Monday, August 17th, Japan announced a possible sale of $620 billion of US equities to try to save their currency. And their currency is called the yen. So, which that's going to be catastrophic for us if they do that. Now, we already know China is selling off our treasuries right now to try to collapse our dollar. They see Japan is in trouble. They see our Federal Reserve is printing money to cover the equity crisis that our banks are having right now. And I'm tired of having to bail them out. And then they keep investing in, I can't, it starts with a D, a certain market that's high risk, and they keep losing money. No one ever goes to jail, and the taxpayer has to keep taking it on the chin to bail them out. Well, the Federal Reserve is trying to cover the equity crisis with our banks, and now they're trying to cover the Japanese yen, and China knows they can't do it, and save both. And what does that mean for the American? What does that mean for our government? Well, if their currency collapses or their bonds collapse, at a minimum, interest rates will go up on our government over here that borrow money. Now, what does that mean to the American citizen? Well, when interest rates for the government goes up, they have to raise interest rates to the money they loan the banks. Then the banks are going to raise interest rates. So the American consumer is going to see higher interest rates on your credit cards, whatever credit card you got right now. If this goes down, your credit card rates are going to go up. Your home loans are going to go up. Your car loans, the interest rates will go higher. Personal loans, interest rates are going to go higher. If you go out and borrow a business loan, the interest rates are going to go higher. All of those things are tied to the bond market, U.S. bond market. So people need to realize you can sit back and, when I posted on Diamond Effect, somebody posted a laughy emoji to it. You can laugh all you want. But when you start having to come out of your pocket to cover these expenses, and on a home loan, it's going to be thousands of dollars.
And you're going to be laughing then.
Yeah. On a car loan, I mean, you're going to be coming out of your pocket with hundreds of dollars to cover this higher interest rate to thousands of dollars because people got greedy and borrowed that low interest money. And now Japan needs it back. And as they sell, China's going to try to collapse our dollar. We're trying to have a controlled collapse. China's where we might get a crack in the egg. China's trying to smash the whole egg on a wall. So as Japan makes their move, China's going to make their move at the same time with a big smile on their face when they realize we can't print enough money. And if the Federal Reserve continues to print, then you might as well get expecting $20 for a gallon of milk and probably $30 for a pack of eggs. I mean, when hyperinflation happened in Argentina, a box of eggs was $200, a carton of eggs. So we don't want to see hyperinflation over here, but we're almost looking down the barrel of the shotgun right now. And like I said, this could trigger a global crisis because if we go down, damn near all these European countries and everybody, including China, is heavily invested in our markets.
Yes,
we catch the cold, everybody else is going to catch the flu because it's going to be worse on them. So we need to understand this, and we need to prepare. Gold, silver, start stocking up money and start getting out of debt so that if a crash happens, you can survive through it as long as you live within your means. And with that, I'll stop there.
Aaron, quickly on that with China, do you think, honestly, China wants our economy to fail, or do you think that they want us to prevail because on the economic front so that they can also get paid? Because, I mean, that's how we fund a huge amount of their country, right?
And you're right with what you're saying, but China and Russia has looked for alternative markets. China has started something called the Belt and Road Initiative. And Iran was key to that. But in case Iran goes down because of this war, China's made a deal with UAE to be that middle person. They've got these banks that they built that they got different countries' currency in. That's part of the BRIC Alliance. They're making $3 trillion a year right now on just the Belt and Road Initiative. And that's going to eventually replace the American markets. And they're smart enough to know that. Well, I'm going to say it like this. When we collapsed the Russian economy back under Reagan, and we put Russia in the poorhouse, and the Iron Curtain fell, Poland and Lithuania, Lithuania, and all those countries got their freedom from Russia because we bankrupted Russia, we put ourselves in the deepest recession that almost came close to being called a depression. We hurt ourselves. Like I said, I was off for 3 years of work during that time period. China is the number one manufacturer. The United States is the number one consumer. But with this Belt and Road Initiative coming along and these alternative markets and alternative pay systems that Russia and China is trying to establish to circumvent the US dollar, we're on borrowed time. I'll just put it like that. I mean, this war that we're fighting now is to preserve the petrodollar and to keep people buying oil in American dollars. If we lose this, we lose the dollar. Could that collapse the dollar? Very possible, because when all that money starts coming back to be repatriated here, it'll create hyperinflation by itself. But I'll stop there.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's like I said, this is a dangerous game that's being played right now, and it started out with one thing, and then, like I said, a lot of things connect the dots. Like, you know, you may start something here, but then you got the trickle down effect. Like by you doing this affects this, which affects this, which affects this. China has always, well, here for the past 2 years, they've been slowly dumping Treasury. That's how Japan became number one in the first place, because China was dumping. But then we turn around and we buying it back. And then once you buy it back, now you got to figure out what you're going to do with it. You know what I mean? And just as you printing money out of thin air, if you're trying to get rid of this debt the same way, you know what I mean? And that doesn't work. You know what I mean? And that's what we got going on right now. I mean, you think about it. You got debt sitting at over 40 trillion. You're not about to pay that. You ain't never going to pay that. You know what I mean? So what are they doing? Steady spending. Spend until you can't spend no more, until you get to the point that it crashes, and then, okay, well, we just start over. And when we start over, we're going to do it this way. You know what I mean? Because that's exactly the way this is going to go. Is that the actual?
Yep, that's the clock right now.
Clock.
So that's 40 trillion, 49 billion, 500. Yeah. So, anyways, you know where we're at. We're just over 40 at the top left number.
And it's steady running. You know, that doesn't stop.
No, that
you know what I mean?
That never stops, man.
Right. That doesn't stop.
That's why, Aaron, what he was saying earlier is the first thing that us Americans need to prioritize is handling our own debt. I'm going to be honest. You cannot be a free man at all unless you are free of debt. Debt is what controls your decision making. Everything that you do, you need to make sure that you get yourself out of debt. That's like the priority number one. I get people that are like, well, I can pay off this debt, but then I can invest at the same time. I'm like, dude, just get it over with. Get that over, and then you can really invest the way that you want, and you're not going to have to pull money because you owe a whole bunch of money. You know, like, so set yourself up for success, not failure, right? But anyways.
Let me add something to what's Mike's saying. I've been trying to look into the future, and I'm not a prognosticator or nothing like that, but I'm trying to see, is this a temporary situation that we're going into? Is it short term? Is it long term? Is there any good? Is there any bad? And right now, I don't see anything good. This war could stretch out till 2030 if Iran continues to play the long game. But let's say they end it now. And 2027, we have a possible war with China that we're going to have to fight. There's nothing good about that at all. Then in 2029, the AI robots come out, and it's going to replace a lot of people's jobs. In fact, within 5 years of them coming out, Elon Musk has said the United States will be faced with 90% unemployment, 90%. And then between 2030 and 2033, the digital currency comes out, which means they're going to collapse the dollar. put people in a hardship, so they would have to accept the digital currency, the social credit system, and the social credit score. There's nothing good about any of this between now and 2033. But I'll leave it up to you. I mean, you can put on the blinders and go through the world and live your life and pretend you don't see it. But I'm gonna tell you this: when it finally hits you, it's going to hit you harder than it would somebody that prepared for it, because you didn't want to accept it. Now you don't have a choice. I'll stop there.
Mm-hmm.
Man, we're just cooking them up tonight.
Right. So this next one that we're going to jump into, we're going to give a little time to, because unlike geopolitics that we was talking about, we're talking about something Americans can literally see coming out or not coming out of their faucets. So let's take Puerto Rico, for instance. Puerto Rico has begun rationing water. Some residents are going 48 hours plus without running water at a time. More than 180 customers in San Juan and the surrounding municipalities have been affected by the initial rationing program. Now, San Juan experienced the driest July on record, with records extending back more than 120 years. Now, nearly 68% of Puerto Rico was experiencing drought conditions when the latest rationing measures were introduced. Now, they have a critically low reservoir, and that supplies significant portions of Puerto Rico. This reservoir has, like I said, you haven't been getting a lot of rain, record heat. You got evaporation. Plus, I hear that they also have a data center over there too, that's soaking up some of this water as well. So, so you're getting hit now. But this isn't just a weather story that we're talking about here, because Puerto Rico was already experiencing serious water system problems before the drought became severe. The government officials had acknowledged decades of inadequate maintenance and investment. And earlier infrastructure planning documents also identify major physical water losses from leaks and breaks throughout the system itself. So Puerto Rico is dealing with a combination of things: less water coming in, significant water being lost inside this aging system that they had. And El Nino is making matters worse.
Yeah.
Now the NOAA forecasters have favored unusually hot and dry conditions for the next coming months. So they're going to really take a significant blow dealing with this. Now, I've seen several shows where they was showing these water trucks going through, and was people were standing there with jugs, getting jugs of water, and that was getting to where these water trucks are now charging people to fill up these jugs of water. There was an interviewer there that was he owned a coffee shop there, and the water truck would go there and fill up this tank that he had there, 500 gallon. Well, no, take it back, 200 gallon tank. He would fill up there, and this guy's saying that he's been spending well over $600 a day just for water, for what they're, because of these water trucks and how much they're actually charging. You know what I mean? So you had a bad infrastructure from the start, not to mention a couple of hurricanes that came through and ravaged Puerto Rico, that a lot of this stuff never got fixed. You got a lot of Asian facilities there, and you got pipe leaks and breaks throughout. Plus, you got a reservoir that's being dried up. You know what I mean? So that's going to end up being a serious problem over there. And on top of that, they also have power issues. So they've been losing power there as well. So what do? You know what I mean? Now, technically, they are under the United States. So, stuff like this should have actually been worked on, taken care of, something. You know what I mean? Like, why would you let decades of this stuff go on and not try to fix it? What do you have there, Mike?
It just looks like an overview of recent reports on Puerto Rico, and I just happened to see it by PBS. They just put it
1 million
out.
people in Puerto Rico have been hit with major water cuts, going at least 48 hours at a time without water.
Fatal.
Terrible. It's unbelievable to be living through this today.
Local rivers that feed key reservoirs are at low water levels as the
Now, this is very quick, by the way. It's only about a minute and a half.
island continues to experience an intense drought. Puerto Rico's capital, San Juan, experienced its driest July on record. And
Just
according
like you
to the
said.
U.S. Drought Monitor, more than 2/3 of the island is now experiencing drought conditions. The island's governor has declared a state of emergency, and 180,000 households and businesses in San Juan and surrounding areas are rotating through 48-hour periods of having access to water.
Terrible.
We haven't been able to do much laundry. We have 4 pets, and it is also very difficult to bathe them. It's
Anyways.
difficult.
As you guys, you can only imagine if you have a lack of water, you can imagine here in the United States, if we had a lack of water, how we would react. I mean, like, people don't even understand, or they can't even empathize with that, because it's not even like, everyone's like, well, when I turn on my faucet, the water comes on, you know, you know what I mean? It's always good.
Well, you got places here in the U.S. that's actually experiencing this going on right now as well.
Mm-hmm.
But you also got to think, dealing with Puerto Rico, not only were they dealing with power and they dealing with
Yes.
water crisis, but they also done had over 300 brush fires on top of that. That was just in July alone. Mainly across the southern eastern part of Puerto Rico. So you got all three: water, power, brush fires. You know what I mean? So it's dealing with a compound of different things that's going on at the same time. You know what I mean? Now, here in the States, we got an issue that's going on. We got several issues that's going on here. You got the Colorado River system. You got Lake Mead, Lake Powell. That's 2 giant reservoirs underpinning much of the Southwest, have both fallen to extraordinary lows. And on August 16th, Lake Powell reached a record low elevation above 3,500 feet. That's 30 feet above the level in which the Glen Canyon Dam lost its ability to generate hydroelectric power. So I want to go down into that a little bit, because what is genuinely threatened in this part is the hydroelectric power generator that's over in the, at the Glen Canyon Dam. And the federal government minimum power pool is around 34 with 3,490 feet. Earlier forecasts actually showed that power potentially falling below the point without emergency intervention. So these officials have already started conserving water, partially because of concern about maintaining this hydropower generator over there. Now, this system supplies approximately 40 million people across the western states and Mexico, and supports millions of acres of farmland. So what does that mean for somebody living in Arizona, Nevada, California, Colorado, Utah, Wyoming, New Mexico? It doesn't necessarily mean that all these faucets are going to go dry tomorrow, but it does mean that the region is entering a much tougher negotiation when it comes to the remaining water that's there. Now, some of these farmers have already started losing irrigation water, cutting hay production, and reducing livestock herds. And also, these officials and the states are considering major reductions in Colorado River consumption. Now, you also know that you also dealing with several several data centers in this area as well. But we've been talking about these dams for months now because they said back last year that at the rate that it was going, dealing with these data centers and being the millions of gallons of water that was being used there, that there would be, by the end of this year, by December of this year, if it wasn't fixed, that these hydroelectric dams were not going to be able to function, which in turn messes with your water and also your power as well. So that's another big section that's going on. Actually,
Real quick,
go ahead, man.
Because you were just on that, I just wanted to show this. I was showing it while you were saying it. I just wanted to confirm what you were saying, though. These are our current reservoir statuses. Lake Mead sits below 1,040 feet above sea level, breaking previous low records set in 2022. It is approximately 27% full. And then Lake Powell dropped about 3,519 feet above sea level, reaching a new record low. Since the reservoir was initially filled, it is approximately 23% full. And that's coming out from U.S. News and World Report.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's sucking it down.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these rivers, these reservoirs, they're drying up. You know what I mean? And now we've talked about before. We did shows dealing with this, dealing with the water shortages and that the potential water shortages that could happen. Like I said, we've been talking about this for well over a year, almost 2 years. Actually, we was talking about this because you had a lot of these billionaires and some of these companies like Nestle and Gates and a few other ones, Palantir, that was buying all this farmland over there, and they was wondering, like, okay, like, what are they doing all this farmland? But they're not building anything on it. But they didn't want to build anything on it. They wanted the water that was underneath it.
Exactly.
Mhm.
It's not about what we can do above ground. It's about what's underneath.
Right. And, being now that you having this mass influx of data centers, take Texas, for instance, El Paso, they're getting hit over there. Water shortages. It's water shortages in all these places that they're popping these data centers up because they're using massive amounts of water.
One thing, so Motabon, Virginia in here, he's from Virginia, obviously one of the biggest heavily used states for data centers, actually. And he's, I'm sure, not super aware of this, but he says probably doesn't pertain to what you're talking about, but just saying. But we have a couple local reservoirs around here that we can't get on and fish because the water's too low. And I can tell you that it absolutely coincides to what we're discussing right now. I'm telling you, there is no doubt about it. I mean, you guys are the number one state, I think, in the United States for data centers. So, and trust me, they use up millions of gallons of water. I mean, we're talking in like days. So, yeah. Anyways,
I think they're like number 2. Texas is number 1.
Okay. That actually would make sense. I wonder how they deal with heat though in the South, because obviously it's all about, or in Texas, in data centers, it's all about keeping that coolness, running water. I mean, you're running water through it for temperature. Actually, that's how it cooks. But yeah, anyways.
Yeah, there's a lot to these data centers that they're not telling you about.
100%.
And when they first came out, people, they were pushing this, putting these data centers here, these data centers. That's all you heard. They were building all these data centers and all these other places, and how this is going to bring on jobs and all this other stuff. I mean, yeah, it brings on jobs to the construction.
Initially, the building process of it.
But you may have a couple people that actually work inside the building just to make sure everything goes the way it's supposed to go. But that's not for everyone. I mean, that's just to make sure if something goes down that there's somebody there to hit a couple buttons and get it going back again. That's basically what that is. But they never sit there and told you about how much power was being used, how the amount of power that they're using, that one data center is actually using enough power to power a small town per day. They don't talk about a million gallons of water used to cool these places a day.
Yeah, single day.
You
We're
know what I
not
mean?
talking about a week or a month. Right.
Right. So once this water flows through, it ain't like you can recycle that water. The water's
Or drink it again or
right.
something.
It's
Yeah,
waste.
it's over.
Right. It's waste. That quick waste. You know what I mean? And if you think about it, I'll give you something real easy to think of. So a lot of people use Chat GPT. They use Chat. They use Claude. They use all that stuff. So here, recently they had on Facebook where everybody was making these little pictures that they were going on Chat GPT, making these little pictures, and they posted on Facebook that kind of told your history as to what you did, what you want to do, all this other shit. Now, do you realize that every time somebody made one of those pictures, you use 4 gallons of water?
Yes.
Every
Yes.
single time somebody did it. Now think about this. You have millions of people who done this.
Mm-hmm.
And each time they made a picture, you just lost 4 gallons of water. Now, if you think about this, I mean, granted, the earth is 95% water. That's salt water, not fresh water. Difference. You know what I mean? Now, once these rivers and these reservoirs dry up, what do you have? Nothing. That's when we end up exactly where Puerto Rico is at right now. And it can very well happen. Aaron, what's going on up in Gary, Indiana right now?
Well, I'm gonna say this about 10 days ago, they had a major storm cell come through the northern part of Indiana. It had massive tornadoes and they had 90-mile-an-hour sustained winds. Now, it only takes 40-mile-an-hour sustained winds to bring down your power lines. So they had 90-mile-an-hour winds. Now, as of today, they've gone 10 days without power. Their food is spoiling. There's no air conditioning and there's no fresh water. They've been told by the power company that they will not have power till September the 12th due to the fact that Gary is not being prioritized by a company called Nibisco. That's their power company. They said that the poor areas cannot be prioritized right now for power. So right now the conditions on the ground are this. Sanitation spotty, your toilet may flush, it may not. So you have to have some sort of means for sanitation. People are fighting over generators. So if you got one running outside your house and people hear it, you're going to have to defend it because people are bold enough that they're coming on the property that the strong is trying to take from the weak. That's the bottom line. There's no gas. So you either got to go to the next city over or you got to drive over to Chicago to try to get you some gas. People with wells cannot get water out of the wells. These are the people who live out in the rural communities because their pumps run on electricity. And then people are trying to take resources from weaker people. So the thugs are going into the neighborhoods and they're taking stuff from folks. If you can't defend it, that's it. And what's the answer here? You must prep. We've told you before that you cannot sit back and prep at your leisure no more. With all that's going on in the world and what the future is showing what's coming, you need to be prepping. You need to be stockpiling food, medicine, water, gas, lighting, emergency generators, security weapons, because you're going to defend your preps and sanitation items. I feel sorry for those people because, like I said, it's a poor neighborhood. The government and them don't feel that they have to prioritize them. So September the 12th is, and that's at best September the 12th. Remember how long Puerto Rico had to go without water when they had that hurricane that came through? It was months. Gary, Indiana can end up being the same way. So I'm going to be interested. I'm going to follow it to see, do they get power back on September 12th, or are they still going to be sitting in the dark? But this is an American city in an American state and they don't have fresh water, no air conditioning, no lighting. And if you don't have emergency equipment or say a solar generator to run your deep freeze and refrigerator, your food and your refrigerator and stuff is spoiling or has spoiled, because after about 48 hours, deep freeze is done. Refrigerator's about 24 hours. So you would have to clean that stuff out because your house would start to stink, and you would have to throw it all away and then wonder where you're going to get the money to pay for all the food. And we know how greedy people get when there's disasters. If you try to go to a motel, I bet you motel rates are double or triple what they would normally be.
Absolutely.
Gasoline, water. If there's money to be made, people are going to they're going to take advantage.
Supply and demand, and that's when price gouging happens. Absolutely. Well, listen, not to mean to cut off the conversation, but I know Aaron has places that he's got to get to. Listen, we can't thank each and every single one of you guys enough for hitting that like button, joining us this evening, and engaging with this conversation. Obviously, I think this was something that was very needed. Go ahead, Aaron. I see you.
Okay. No, I wanted to do my section real quick, and then I'm gonna get
Okay, you
off.
can, if you think you can throw it in, sure.
Okay. What I want to talk about to people today is freeze-dried food. Now, basically, freeze-dried food is a way of preserving food by freezing it and then removing the water under a vacuum. And what it does is it locks in 97% of the nutrients and the original flavor. So that's actually pretty good for food preservation. Now, what can you freeze dry, or what can you buy that's freeze dried? You can buy fruits, vegetables, and meats. Okay. Now, what's the key benefit? You have a long shelf life. Like, for example, I have this mountain house right here. It has an expiration date on it of September of 2050. That's a long time. That probably outlasts me.
Damn, 2050.
Yeah. Because freeze-dried food, you're going to have 25 to 30 years shelf life on freeze-dried food. It's light in weight. If you got a backpack, canned goods is the heaviest. MREs would be about middle range, but freeze-dried food, I could put double the amount of food into a pack. And you got to keep in mind that when you're loading up a bug-out bag or a pack, pounds equal pain. The heavier the pack is, the more pain you're going to feel trying to hump that load. So freeze-dried food is ideal when you're dealing with a pound equals pain type ratio. It's high in nutrition. It retains almost all of its vitamins and flavor, and it's a fast prep. All I got to do is tear this top open, pour hot water in, set it down for 10 minutes. You could stir it in around 5 minutes if you want, but it'll reconstitute itself and you've got a hot meal. And you don't have to use hot water. It'll reconstitute with cold water if you don't mind having a cold meal in an emergency in the event you can't make a fire to be able to boil water. So it's definitely a fast prep. Now, how do you store it? All you need is a tote with a lid or a bucket with a lid, and you can stick them down inside your bucket and just stack the buckets up in a cool, dry place. And that's away from sun, and they'll keep for years. Now, what are they designed for? Anybody that's into outdoor ventures, if you are a hunter or a fisherman, they're great to take with you on a fun hunting or fishing trip. Great for camping and hiking trips. And then if you're into prepping for emergencies, which the people in Gary, Indiana, and some of these other places that's run into these severe anomalous storms, this is an ideal food to have to put back that you can store for long terms. My biggest problem when I first started off storing food was I was stacking up all these cases of canned goods. And what it did to me was when the expiration dates would come, I couldn't eat the food fast enough. And I tried to give it away and people start complaining, well, it's at the expiration date. Well, it goes beyond the expiration date. It depends upon what it is and how, whether you can go a year or more beyond it, but nobody wanted it. So I was ended up throwing away all this food. But for long-term storage, you cannot beat freeze-dried food. Now, some of the good companies that you'd want
That's exactly what I was just about to ask you.
Okay.
Is what are some of the companies here?
Peak Refuel. This is restaurant quality. This is good. And then if you say, well, do they make any desserts? Here's a peach cobbler by Peak Refuel.
Damn.
So yeah, they have freeze dried ice cream. They have the works. You know, Mountain House is great. You have Patriot Supply.
Damn.
You also have a company called Thrive. You have Augustin Farms. One of the best is a company called Freeze Dry Wholesalers. But the brands I've got here, I've sampled them, I've tried them. They're great. Anyone that will try them won't be upset. I mean,
Would they be on Amazon?
You can get them on Amazon, yes.
Perfect.
Or
Perfect.
you can go to your Walmarts or Myers stores, go back into the sporting goods sections, and in the camping section, they have them up on the wall where you can purchase them individually.
Nice.
Some companies you can go and buy a case of them. But and I'm basically going to say for those that are prepping and need a long-term alternative so they don't have to keep rotating food in and out, you're going to want to add this to your preps and definitely have it in your pantry, because remember, your stages are the food that's going to spoil in the first 2 days is what you got in your refrigerator and your deep freeze. That's stage 1. Stage 2 foods are your MREs and your canned goods. They're going to go from day 2 to almost 10 years. Stage 3 is going to be your freeze dried foods and your dry products that you store back using oxygen absorbers and Mylar bags. You're going to get 10 to 30 years out of that food. And then stage 4 is your renewing food source. And by renewing, I'm talking about having chickens in the yard, backyard chickens, raising rabbits. If you got big aquariums, you can raise tilapia, bluegills. Those animals breed like crazy. And that's your renewable food source. And then having a seed bank where you can grow your food. That's your 4 stages. And if you can cover those bases, you can make it. So, and again, independence is what you should be seeking right now, because we're living in uncertain times and anything can happen at any time and your life could change at a click of a finger. Be ready for it. And I'll stop there.
Well, and this is exactly what this show is all about, is not only giving you guys the facts objectively what's happening, but also predicting outcomes, as well as letting you guys know not everything is a crisis, but it can all crumble down. It's a house of cards. It's a house of cards is exactly what it is. And so we don't tell you guys like, hey, you need to do this or be scared of fear monger or any of that. But we're like, hey, this is what we do to prepare ourselves. And I think that it would behoove anybody that's watching and everybody to do exactly what we're talking about. Preparedness is truly key. If you don't have to get ready, that's I mean, if you have to get ready, it's better to have it and be ready for all those situations. And that's exactly what I see both of you guys have done. And it's actually influenced me as well, because I think that you guys also see how my ideology is. And that worked out perfectly in my thinking. And so, again, it's not like you have to buy all these things all at once or whatever. It's just a stacker's mentality. Over time, like, hey, I need to, I can spend $100 per month on something that is going to help me long term or something like that. And it doesn't need to be, I need to buy it all right this second. Do it over time. And that's exactly why we just have these discussions. So, anyways, thank you guys for.
Mike,
go ahead.
Real quick before you end. One of them ones there that he had, that 4 Patriots.
Mm-hmm.
They have a thing going on right now where you can get 5 months of food for $6.99, and you can actually make it in payments of like $77 a month.
Oh, wow, that's cool. That's cool.
But it's for 5
that's a good
months.
option,
right? But it's for 5 months of food. I mean, that's a good deal. It's a real good deal.
No doubt. No doubt. And it gives you an option to give it payments as well. If that's an option. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just say, if you happen to have the money, buy it up front so you don't have to pay the interest. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
anyways, listen, ladies and gentlemen, I can't thank each and every single one of you guys enough. Make sure you guys hit the like button on the way out. Double tap that screen if you guys are on the vertical side. And listen, we'll be back here in 7 days for another, crazy story as we always go down this truth-seeking adventure. Much love, honor, respect, everybody, and God bless.